Good morning, and thanks for joining us today. We're going to be talking about AutoCAD Civil 3D and style management inside this complex piece of software called Civil 3D, and we're going to be doing it from the context of the JUMP platform, what's there in terms of things available to you, and we're going to try to show all the tools, make them help make sense. Before we do that, my name is Ted Shellman, and I'm the president of More Competency. We have a number of products. Many of these you'll see bits and pieces of in today's demonstration. Key one being Instant On Basic, which is our basic 4-seat product that makes Civil 3D run right away, right out of the box. Lots and lots of styles, a couple of thousand in there. On top of that, we have this thing called the Jump Kit, which, if you understand style management tools, right, help you get 5,000 styles in and out of template drawings, making templates to do unique tasks, and tweaking the jump, so to speak, to publish on demand what you really need. The symbol set is part of every single jump kit and blocks only. Compliant set of NCS 4.0 symbols, civil engineering symbols for AutoCAD that includes most of the LDT stuff, all the stuff out of the NCS, and a whole bunch of other common needed things that we need to symbolize our drawings in Civil 3D. The idea of IOB is really simple. It simply allows you to work the same project after project and then intelligently publish on demand. And we like to kid around and say that makes IOB the iPod for AutoCAD Civil 3D. It's intelligent publishing on demand. So productivity is the key goal here. It's built into all the products and what they do by design. We employ national known standards like the NCS because they're the path of least resistance to a common set of understood things that we all need. We also support multiple versions of Civil 3D, so currently we are supporting 10, 11, and 12, and all our products have real-world upgrade compatibility. So when there is a new release of Civil 3D, which there will be, happens all the time, or a new service pack, fixes, all those sorts of things just happen. So all the parts has a complete structure, and the processes are all in there too if you want to pay attention. And we believe that in terms of being able to get work out the door, implement Civil 3D rapidly, adopt it across multiple locations in multiple departments, your return on investment in employing our product is measured in days, and the total cost of ownership, maintaining this whole thing also reduces, and in the end, it only ends up costing you pennies a day to get a lot of productivity out of Civil 3D. So with all those ads, here's how you can talk to us. We're always happy to talk to you. 1-800-584-1506. Email addresses, sales@cadpilot.com. Always get you a response. So we're here to talk about the style tools in Civil 3D, which is venturing into some steep, spooky ground, because you really can't talk about styles in Civil 3D unless you talk about the data that you are actually trying to show. So Civil 3D is based on this idea, object-oriented programming, pretty simple stuff, that you build a model and then you can display that model, represent that model in lots and lots of ways. And that's what styles do inside Civil 3D. They help you visualize line work, surfaces, profiles. Everything civil we can think of is represented by this idea of a style. And then on top of simply the line work pictures, so to speak, we also have the ability to annotate or produce textual alphanumeric information from that Civil 3D data through label styles, which are connected in strange, bizarre ways to all that. And now, given that almost unlimited liberty to make it look like pretty much almost anything you want, how do you maintain and manage all that? So a couple of important facts here. That Civil 3D is a database a data-based piece of software. And the management of what we call the dynamic model is effectively project-based from a real-world viewpoint. There are key features, and people, you, real human beings, have to manage the interactions of all those features. That's an inescapable conclusion. So at a user skill level, being able to manage the dynamic model is a user skill that must be learned. And this is one of the big obstacles for lots and lots of people, because there are a lot of features. If you do lots of kinds of design, and Civil 3D is a big nasty beast and does all kinds of stuff to really deep levels, and requires that you understand what the feature is, how the feature can represent itself, and how you can modify, edit, maintain that feature over the course of a project. And there are like 25 features now, and the number will probably keep growing. So the end is that project structure really does matter. Whether it's inescapable or not, we have in Civil 3D, while it's based on AutoCAD and based on map, it has these feature things. So now we have data references added to drawing references, XREFs, and things like images, GIFs, aerial photographs, all kinds of stuff, and lots of other forms of data showing up on our screen and being able to be represented in lots of ways. So the other issue is that when we throw data into one of these features, if we make a service, for example, to pick something simple, it changes state. That means as we add new data to it, things change about it. And many features in Civil 3D alignments, for example, can become the source of other new features. And so that feature data then becomes a reference in other features. And so that whole linked set of references that we had in the old AutoCAD LDT days now explodes into something much more complex and more difficult to get your head around. And when it comes down to your project submittal or archiving a project, I argue that a project upgrade is not any different than any of these things, or publishing your project as plan sets or as data objects to someone else in perhaps a different form of software, like out to DGN, is not any different than a project upgrade in terms of how you have to deal with the features and what's really going on and what styles can do there. So style and features are irrevocably tied together because of the way Civil 3D works. And I always like to use, most everybody is familiar with Office and Word. In Word, we have a normal.dot file. It's a template file. And most people never change their normal.dot file. If you work for a large company, you might have your own normal.dot file so that your emails look the same, so that your correspondence to clients looks the same, et cetera, et cetera. The simple truth about Civil 3D, scary as it may be, is that you have probably like 100 normal.dot files happening in a single project. So each of the features, in effect, has a normal.dot file. It's not expressed that way in the interface, but we're really dealing with an awful lot of stuff. And in a practical project-based environment, one of the things that users complain about is that, Bob, in the next cubicle, he tweaked the contours, and now the contours don't look anything like what I think they should like, and when I try to plot them, they don't go to the right layer, and they're in the wrong color. They don't show up right. So inside Civil 3D, we have this edit the style button that's all over the place, and it becomes our enemy. We want everything back to the way it's supposed to be, whatever that may be. So this ability to change styles is probably one of the most or more important things on top of understanding how the features work and how to put data in and massage that data that we all have to learn inside Civil 3D. And instead of focusing on what your current picture is or your current drawing is, how to get what you want out of the features is what real style management skill is about. And to be truthful, label styles, because they have all that alphanumeric stuff and how they are arranged and displayed on a plan is a difficult graphic problem. They have the most complexity to them and the most problems with updates. And there are tools inside Civil 3D built in there, like label style defaults and something we call the Civil 3D hierarchy. Um, Coupled with geometric structure and this idea of expressions, that can allow you to do an awful lot of work inside label styles. But keeping them all working the same, getting what you need out of them is a bit problematic. So beyond the creation and the maintenance and all that, what are the tools that we got? Key issues here. And in terms of Civil 3D, we really kind of have to realize that we're dealing with a lot more kinds of drawings than we ever did before. So how we express that and how we organize our projects, how we think about that, how we train people, how we talk about them, we got to think about. We have model building drawings to make a surface or import a survey or create an alignment. And those may become a different thing, as we said. I make my primary alignment, now I need offset alignments, now it's got to run through intersections, and all that gets to be fairly complicated. But we got definitely create and construct model building drawings. Some of them become reference drawings, deref publication drawings. We create a survey drawing, so to speak, to create an existing ground surface, which is then employed in multiple other drawings as the back end, as a data source for profiles and existing ground stuff that appears all over the place. So is that the same as the point location drawing that shows the symbols in the right points and all those sorts of things? So how we divide this up changes a lot by the kind of projects that you're doing, the work you're doing, but this idea of a feature publication drawing or a data reference drawing, right, is another kind of drawing. XREFs and images are an obvious other sorts of kinds of data, and they are, in fact, you can make GIFs, background images, to publish features into your final work, which is an incredibly useful idea if you employ it. So there are drawings that also exist to kind of pile up this stuff together. So you end up with an existing site plan with the right points, the right surface, and all the right stuff that becomes the background for other plan and profile drawings, for example, or even pages of sections. And then we have this idea of sheets and the whole sheet set manager methodology of publication, which is really there so you can publish what you need on demand. And it isn't rocket science, but you do have to get your hand around it, have an organized approach to making them. When and what are you publishing and how are you doing it from your sheet sets? And of course, many of us are dealing with the fact that we actually do not deliver paper set of plans at all, but a digital published deliverable in PDF or in drawing file format, and what that is and how that goes out to other people who are going to downstream employ it in what we call these days the BIM process. All right. So a couple of key issues here before we even get to the tools is that in Civil 3D, style, whatever it looks like on the screen, however it's represented, however it's labeled, all that stuff is always temporary. And at the individual user level, tweaking a style is the enemy of consistency unless you do it in a systematic way. If you employ that individual editing or tweaking of styles in a productive way, it gets you better styles. So we have this tension. And as I said, the ability to know how to change what you see on the screen via style is one of the most important tools to gaining productivity inside Civil 3D, and apparently, based on a lot of training experience, one of the more difficult things for users to get, since we as CAD people tend to be locked into what's on my screen right now visually. We're, many of us, very visual kinesthetic people, and it doesn't look right. Becomes an obsessive problem for us. So you start trying to make it look right when many times it's the data that underlies that is lying to us, or a poor style, a poor representation of the object is tricking us into believing things are wrong when they're right, or right when they're wrong. I'm not going to, cover all these things, right? But there are a couple of things that you need to be aware in Civil 3D. There are these things called criteria styles. And if you're in the design space, doing alignment stuff for highway work and all those things, when you start trying to move around criteria styles, grading criteria styles, alignment criteria styles, these ideas of filters that find you problems inside your data, right? More problematic getting them in and out, and you usually have to handle them individually rather than via a style tool. Okay, right? And sets, this idea in Civil 3D of things like alignment, label sets, group labels, right? They have special arrangement properties, which are very, very useful, but because of the stack complexity in them, right? You may find that as you start copying them around, moving them around, and all those things, you can have issues with the sets being maintained, and simply slapping an import on them isn't going to necessarily get you exactly what you want right away, because they have their own set of properties which are distinct from both the data and the styles themselves, right? So hopefully Civil 3D will get better at it. It has consistently got better at all of these things, release over release, right? So we're going to talk about 2012, where a major effort was made. This is a good thing. So 2012, if you're an 11, hey, this is one of the really good reasons to employ 12. Okay, it's not the only one by a long shot, but there are really good style tools. They're getting better, and they keep getting better, but you have to understand what their limitations are, and some of those are a little bit tricky to figure out. Whenever you're dealing with something like that, hey, if you're going to try this stuff, and you should, it's going to take some practice to figure it out, do it on copies of active work drawings before you try it in real live project drawings. And every one of the tools require practice and attention to detail, as Civil 3D does almost everywhere. Got to get the right practice in, understand what the results are to get consistent results. And key ones here are purge, style settings, and styles and setting import, which is a new vision of what we have called in the Civil 3D world the style hammer. I want it to look like this, right? So, and there are some real subtle ones like find and replace reference tools, which are some of the very, very useful ones when we have to make a feature representation get simpler and those sorts of things. Those are really useful for getting things fixed up, or perhaps porting your project to a different set of styles. So without further ado, let's hop over into Civil 3D. And a couple of key issues. We need a drawing. Any old drawing, we have this idea in Civil 3D of, hey, we need a template, okay? And we got drawing templates, and we point somewhere, and in the jump we advocate that that somewhere is probably a project-based set of resources, and the jump ships with a project structure based on the uniform drawing standards, not because it's perfect or you're not going to modify it, but because it gives you a reasonable place to start and does emulate some of the things or approaches that Civil 3D has towards maintaining your project with some manner of consistency. We have this idea in Civil 3D, like we've had in Word, of, hey, I want to start a drawing and I want my core set of styles for my design staff to show up and pretty much give them what they need to do their projects. And that is the idea behind IOB, or Instant on Basic. That set of templates has a couple of thousand styles in it, relative to this drawing, which we'll switch to for a moment, just to hop over to the settings tab and, hey, point styles, hey, you got about 20. Okay. If we switch over to the drawing just made from our template here, we do really have point groups that do have reasonable expectations of the kinds of things that most people run in most projects. And, in terms of point styles, there's 256 unique point styles buried away inside just a simple template for Civil 3D. And label styles, how many things are in there? Well, there are only 15 items. Well, that's not really true, because every one of these has collections of multiple kinds of things just to label points. And that kind of depth is all over Instant on Basic and our approach, which is you need to have the right styles available to you so things consistently make sense. And then, then we got to worry about how it is represented on the screen. So we're going to get some data, right? But first, we need to make sure, hey, we're in a coordinate system, and the jump itself ships with a whole project. Now, why would we do a whole project? EF, thank you. Why would we do a whole project? Well, you need to have a whole project to see the context of how all the stuff is tied together, how the features talk to one another in the dynamic model, how they might be expressed in lots of different ways, profiles this way, profiles that way, and all those things. So a project data set that at least makes sense delivers a number of things to you right away. You have an built-in training environment that's reasonably well-world, with everything from surface data and survey data to finished pipe networks, right? So that you can see what's in the jump and how to employ it and learn how to do it. Next, it also is a development environment for you to tweak the jump to the unique preferences that you have to deal with when you publish your project. So we've got this set up. I also want to point out, right, that one of the key really big things inside of Civil 3D in terms of styles, no matter what you deal with, are label styles. What do they look like, how big they are. All those things are controlled by this idea of label style defaults. And there are key things, right, built into a hierarchy of all label styles that works in a structured way. And the jump is built to employ very simple known text styles pointing to NCS compliant fonts. So this stuff works. And whether we're talking about text heights for specific things, right, or arrowhead size, or all these things are things that are defaults, right, inside Civil 3D, and they obey rules. And if you build good sets of styles and employ this structured approach, then changing your plan to look completely different, to not use Arial, Windows, TrueType, but use old school Simplex or New Times Roman, or whatever you want to do, or whatever your client demands, is a reasonably easy thing to do, because we obey those hierarchy rules inside the jump. And whatever you do, better employ those. So I can do things, for example, like decide that for area label styles, I would like all those labels to, instead of being this really teeny little default number, I would like them all to be, 0.12, which would effectively end up, right, being about L120 in old Leroy speak. And notice that becomes an override for all my area styles. So I can make my parcel area labels bigger all at once without modifying an individual style, just by doing this sort of thing. But also, if I move that label around on the screen, it's going to have a different height potentially. So in my case, I would like those to stay the same, for example. So this idea of a structured approach to how you manage labels, manage feature styles, and all those things are critical to you being able to get successful results and actually employ the style tools that are in there. Let's throw some data in here, right? We have a shared project. So, are we pointing to the right place? Data shortcuts are important. Here are my references. Hey, I'd just like to, oops, how come I can't create a reference? Oh, that's because I really haven't saved my drawing somewhere into my own hard drive, a network drive, but probably most likely buried away into my project structure. In my project structure, as we already said when we opened this, has model building drawings that are employed as references, and that would hold lots of containers, existing condition stuff, which may be references, but very often is the data that comes from other people, and there are perhaps other folders. We also, in terms of if we're building a model, divide things up, sort of in a project-based approach, but if you look at this carefully, this list of folders under model are feature-based inside Civil 3D instead of output-based. And that is an important concept since we need to keep the features and manage that interaction together. And hey, let's just say, hey, we're going to build a parcel map, and I'm going to have some drawing naming convention, which you better have. And, we're just going to call this a 30 version of whatever we're doing and say, okay, so make me a drawing, and now let's make this look like something else. And we need some data. And we wanted to create a reference to our surface, and maybe want that expressed as proposed contours, simply changing the layers that they go onto, even though it's an existing round surface. And Civil 3D says, where's the data? I can zoom to it, okay, and I get a picture, and I can label and do all that masterful stuff. But what if I want this to be different? Well, it's Civil 3D, so I grab it, and the green ribbon comes up and says, what do you want to do? I have all kinds of things. I can actually go out and right away, Civil 3D, because it knows this is not something in my drawing, but something somewhere else that might change. I can synchronize it. I can go out and look at what that source data was and what made up that surface. I can, of course, right? Oh, there's that dreaded edit the surface style. I don't like the colors they are. I want to change it. We had this idea of surface properties, right? Lots of stuff buried in each different kind of feature. The tabs change, things change here. I would like to, do it with slope arrows. And since everything about a feature, if you didn't notice, contours, right, are something you can do this with, right? We happen to pick one that employs slope arrows, and I'd like a range, and please do that. And there is some default built into it, so it performs the analysis. But maybe, we'd like to tweak this to be, 0 to 0.5%, and 0.5% to a real 1% instead of slightly off that. Right, so we can change this and apply it and get arrows that tell us things about our surface, for example, right away. So one of the key things about Civil 3D is not only can we make it look what we want, but we get ways to select off so we're not on the surface, ways to validate or QA whether the feature, the civil engineering data that we have, is producing a reasonable result. I'm looking for all my little purple arrows, which tells me I really do have curb break here all over my drawing. So style is employed beyond the obvious, I want it to look right when it gets plotted, as this marvelous ability to look at the data in all kinds of ways. And so 3D has got tons of tools like object viewers, right, where, hey, does this make sense? Does this look like something like it should? Does it have giant busts in it? And, nifty tools, right, in terms of visualizing data in lots and lots of ways to help me see all that kinds of stuff. And all of that, whether we like it or not, is controlled by style. So where are some of these new fancy style tools? Well, one of the most important ones is that you've got to have a good set of styles to start out with that does the job that your people need to do. Okay, if it can't express what a surface looks like or what a profile looks like or what an alignment looks like in some reasonable fashion that makes sense to most of the people who are working, you've got a long uphill climb. And one of the things that is a burden to every organization employing Civil 3D is that simply, how do I build them? And now we have the problem of I built it, thought it was right, but Bob hated it and started changing it. Let's, throw in some other things here. Let's go out and we got, this is a typical jump project, got tons of alignments. Okay, so, let's take a west to east here, and I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to create a reference to the profile, right, which I'm not going to show you in my drawing right away, but that will drag over a reference to the alignment. And we'll do that. So, and of course, I've got lots of ways to express this, and you'll notice there are some cool things, even in its basic, like utility alignments, right? Existing and proposed, ditches, and all that kind of stuff. Most of the stuff that we use every single time. We're going to leave it as layout, right? And we could throw labels, and there are, of course, basic label sets to do them so they look like what LDT would look like pretty much for most of this stuff, right, in terms of labels, right? But we're not going to throw any labels at all, right, on my profile that is not yet in my drawing. But that drags me over, this surface is kind of annoying for me right now. Do I want to edit the surface style? No, don't want to do that. I would like that to look different, so that's a property of the surface. And, hey, it's real sexy, but I'd really like to have it go away so it's not cluttering up my screen. And now I have access to the data, right? And how do I prove that? Well, access to the data, really simple, right? Oh, okay, so one of the things I'd like to do is please create a dynamically connected to that horizontal control, the surface, and notice it already recognizes that you already have the design one, right? And that's coming from somewhere. And I'd like to, add that, and, please, while you're at it, draw a profile view, and the jump's got tons. So, let's full in all vertical the same, and all these are done in naming conventions that make sense to most human beings after they use it for a very short period of time. And, create my profile view, and we'll slap it over here. And we get labels and all that stuff. Oh, hey, it doesn't look exactly like what I want. Well, so I'm smart. I know that ooh, that's a profile. It has profile labels, there are group labels, and I can import another set and say, please just give me the existing breaks and apply those. And one of the things I point out that all these little weeding factors and whether it uses staggering and all these little fine-tuning details that do make a difference when we finally go out to publish, right, are embedded in the set and must be moved from drawing to drawing or in template to template, get what you want. And hey, this is the jump, so oops, that's really not what I really wanted to do. It's a profile view, and I really wanted something that's clipped, and I want to be able to pick my profile that it clips to, okay, and say that, and we happen to be clipped to the design profile here. We could be clipped to the existing ground profile, so my grids are clipped, and we do all the sexy stuff like ranges of stations and ranges of elevation and very cool stuff. Where's the horizontal and vertical control points? They show up anyway. And oh, I like the vertical curves labeled this way or that way. All that little fine detail that it takes to make your data make sense in Civil 3D is what style is about. But this was 10x, and I'd really like to output this plan and profile that I'm working on here, and unfortunately my city wants it at plan scale of 30, and for some bizarre reason they also want it at 1:5. Okay, so what do I do? Okay, so well, profile view properties here, and this is a jump, and okay, it's got a lot of styles and a lot of different ways that it might look, but they're all 10x, which, by the way, means we take the annotation scale and divide it by the number, okay, on my current annotation scale. So when I change my annotation scale to 1:30 plan, now I'm at 1:3 vertical. Okay, so that's not what they want. So now I need modified profile view styles. So one of the things that's built into the jump kit, right, are lots and lots of more styles like that. And the simplest of style tools, which has existed in Civil 3D for a long, long time, is simply better save my current drawing, since I want to modify it. And how would I get another style I've got somewhere else into this drawing? Well, this is kind of a laborious task. I kind of open the drawing and I kind of remember where it was, and since that's a resource, and I'm going to hop up here and we're going to hop up into what's the jump kit, and go into resources, go to styles, and I go to a complex collection. I'm looking for a profile views, and I got all kinds of them. I got clip ones. I really do want a clip one. It's got all of them. And so I open this drawing, and there's nothing in this drawing but a whole giant pile, right, of styles. And I'll go over here, and there are only profile view styles in here and label styles. And as you can see, I've got tons and tons of them. Right, so I wanted a clip in, out, etc. Well, I need to get one of those into my current drawing. So we want to make my current drawing the topmost drawing, since that's where I want it. And now I'll go back over to my settings tab and go down, find my profile views, and now, since I've learned the jump naming convention, okay, I don't want horizontal, I want a PP. Okay, I want a PP for 1:3, but I want a 1:5. That's really what I want, with all the same, and throw that guy in there. And that is the simplest of style tools inside Civil 3D. And now that I've got it in my drawing, right, and I go to my profile view, and And I say, oh, and it nicely falls by naming convention, right? It should be in my PP pile, and and wait a minute, I just threw it in here. How come it's not on my list? Oh, there it is. Hit apply, change the vertical, ink. Okay, so once again, everything else. Did I have to change everything else? No, I may have to rearrange things if I'm actually changing, you know, how the data is displayed. That may require that I do make some modifications to other things, but this ability to have consistent styles with consistent names that are replaceable, that employ the same look and feel all over the place is tremendously productive inside Civil 3D and gives you tremendous, publication liberty with what you want. So that was the simplest of style tools in Civil 3D, and I can't really avoid not doing it. Okay, we want to close that thing. We don't need anything else from there. Maybe we want, we've decided that, our alignment here is, actually the center line of a ditch, maybe an electrical utility ditch. Okay, and we want it labeled and print that way. Okay, so do I have those kinds of things? We have both the alignment itself and the label set, right, that is connected to it. Right, so we can take the label group and we're just gonna slap nothing on it for now. All right, so we obviously have lots of style choices. I've got my alignment, and right now it has some properties, right? And one of those properties is its style. It came in as standard because my template happens to say that that's what I'd like, but I'd really like it to be an existing sanitary sewer alignment. Okay, and what does that mean? Well, what that means is now it's going where? Oh, is it going to? It's going to a road layer, but it's expressing itself right actually on a sewer layer. Pretty cool stuff. So now we'll plot with the sewer and utility stuff, right, and all done by style. But I really like group labels, and I'd like to say that it's a sewer ditch, not a roadway center line. So maybe we wanted to edit those alignment labels, and well, major station label, and oh, okay, so what was that? We want it to be an existing sewer ditch and add that guy in there, and yeah, we'll increment it 100 feet. We can always change that, right? Okay, and say okay, and what does that do? Well, okay, that labels it as a sanitary sewer ditch, right? And trust me, if I change my view and rotate the whole thing around, now we have view-based annotation, and can I tweak those and add other ones? And maybe I want it to say something in uppercase instead of lowercase and all those things. And once again, now I got more styles to get in. So, but now that I did that, well, maybe that's not really what I wanted to do. I zoomed, edit the alignment labels, get rid of all those guys, and um, we want to change the alignment property and take us back to, oh, well, wait a minute, we could make it a roadway easement. That would be kind of cool, right? Okay, so this ability to have useful styles that are expressed in ways so I don't have to worry about where they're going to publish or how they're going to look and all those things central. Now that Tench has been sitting here messing around with this drawing and creating some data and doing some things, I'd like to get this back to the way it was. Can I? Well, maybe one of the cool things, I got a profile view and I got profile view styles, and Civil 3D is real nice and tells me that, and do I have other profiles that, that reference that? So, this will, show you where it is. If I click on this thing, does this, that will, you know, browse me to that exact profile view, right? So anything we reference that we can find from the style side, right? We can go find, what is employing that look and feel in my current drawing. And believe me, if I had 8, 9, 10 profiles, okay, and 2 or 3 were inconsistent, that might be a really handy thing to say, okay, which one has that one applied, not that one applied, when there are, and maybe very subtle differences between what they look like. This one has, all the little incrementals, right? And I would really like it just to do the 5-foot majors and 10-foot, right? Different style name. Oh, okay, now I get it. I can find it. So key issue, right, is you can find it by style. So if you know what you're looking for, see a reference that you don't understand, you can do that as well. We had a surface style in here, and I don't remember what that was, and I don't remember what surface that was appointed to, but we've got references, and there are some things that are, where is this reference pointing, right? Find references, okay? And you'll see, okay, so for new corridors, there's a drawing setting, right? Okay, which is one of the more useful things in Civil 3D, is that just like our label styles, we can have drawing settings, and I would like to replace it. Instead of doing 1 to 5s by default, I would like it to do existing every time I built a corridor. Or maybe I want one that actually does, 1/2-foot contours and 5s, which makes it easier because most of the time the roadway is pretty flat. And okay, so we can replace that. And so that this find and replace references, right, extremely useful tool inside a drawing that you need to fix. I can find every one of these. For example, find me every reference to that wherever it is, and I'd like to replace it with standard. Okay, and every reference to that one I'd like to replace with standard. And I'd like to find every reference to invisible and replace with standard, whatever I've determined that standard looks like, and say okay. And now I have a surface up here, right? Surface CG, right? And its properties say it's invisible. But wait a minute, I replaced, wait a minute. I went and found my surface style invisible and said replace that everywhere with standard, and it's still referenced and still explicitly changing. So the bug, that's the way the tool is supposed to work, but doesn't do it. So another thing about tools is that you need to make sure they're actually doing as advertised. So if I find references here, it will find it here, right? And now I want to replace it there explicitly and replace standard with standard there, and it won't let me do it. But how come? Well, let's just say there's a reason, right? And my point was to let you know that because it's pointing at a data reference, right, is among the other issues, right? So they're useful tools. You have to understand the limitations of the tools and test them. So what is important inside Civil 3D to test tools? Suppose, right, I want to find out where those sexy new tools that ship with 12 are. They're on the Manage tab, and one of the important ones is here. Let's purge. And this is one of the more useful ones because I want to get rid of my drawing, which maybe I need to ship to somebody else, or I certainly want to get rid of all that great diversity that, I got. I can, pick a list and notice it will find every instance for every unused style currently in a pass, and it's going to pull out, 1,700 styles that are not referenced anywhere in my drawing. And so I'll say, okay, and give you some idea of what's in an instant on basic in real practical terms. So how much difference and how much pitch you get. And it rips, all those styles that I, piled into my template. And just like, a purge of an AutoCAD drawing, takes it a bit, and that was a big collection, right? Probably a good idea to do a save, okay? And we know things because we've been using AutoCAD for years and years that no single purge works right away. And because in Civil 3D, and one of its burdens and pleasures is the fact that styles reference other styles. So when you do the first level of this, right, you get rid of some styles, and then because you got rid of those styles and they're not referenced anymore, other ones are available. So, hey, now we get rid of another 90. And, we're smart. We do a save. And, we purge one more time. And, we're still getting rid of them, right? And you'll notice that all of these happen to say like plus new, right? And they have plus news. That means they were the top end collector for a whole bunch of other styles. So, now we're 3 levels down into our purge routine, and hit purge again, right? And we find nothing. So we're down. Did we get rid of every unreferenced style in our drawing? Well, we got rid of all the surface styles. In fact, because we replaced standard, right? We do have these styles, right? Which are, and we now know that these are probably coming from settings. They are not explicitly connected to an object. So one thing that purge cannot do is at this point reach into drawing settings and remove settings. Okay, so this is a limitation of the current version of purge. It will not go into your drawing settings and remove reference styles that are referenced in your drawing settings. So worth noting. Okay, so if I want to, why I started out with replace with is that, hey, now I can, wait a minute, and because I purge brutally, I no longer have a standard to get down to. Well, there's, thought I'd show you a little trick today, but I need all those standard styles. So one of the other things that purge does is it removes the default style for almost all these things, right? Unless it's referenced. This one happens to be, it's referenced where, right? Okay. So depending upon the style, it may remove standard styles which you need. Okay, a couple of tricks. Save. Okay, so let's go to Prospector and let's close this drawing real temporarily and see what happens when we reopen our 31 drawing. Oops. And Civil 3D chugs around, and for many styles, what were you looking at? We were looking at contour label styles, I think, right? Okay, label styles, contour label styles, still no standard. So if I want to, I'm only left with what I purged down to, and I need standard styles. And one of the things that purge does to your drawing, which can be frustrating, is this little thing, but we already beat you. We're ahead of you, right? In the jump, we, of course, you know, say, well, what I really like is, you know, oh, I don't have one of those. Right, wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. Oh, it should be smart here. I've got, I've got Jump Kit out there, and we've got resources in there, and I've got styles, and I've got base drawings, and I've got a no styles with no object layers, right? And these have the standards in them, right? And I'm going to just insert that into my current drawing. I'm going to explode it. I'm not going to specify on screen anything, so it's just going to go to 0, 0 and dump in all my standard styles, right, that were built by code. And now I have a standard style to replace these things. So I want to replace with, hey, standard. Find all those references and replace that one. Now it's not referenced anymore. Replace with standard. So one of the cool things that maybe you could put in a request, as I have, is, hey, take all my reference styles and please replace them with something called standard. Would be a really nice little additional tool to this style thing, so that now I can further purge my drawing down, but I don't want to do that until I get rid of the references that I don't want. And why would I want a drawing completely in standard? Well, being completely in standard means that it will upgrade without issue. So AutoCAD Civil 3D's code will actually create standard placeholders where it needs to, for almost all, let me say, almost all features and their label styles that are required. There are some sets it does not. Real quick, we're just about in an hour. We'll look at import styles. Now, as I've gone through all this, right, we've purged things down, and hey, now I'd like to get back to that template that we started from. Okay, easy enough. We can do that. Import. Okay, okay, it's going to remind you, you better save things before we make massive changes. And we're going to go import, and it's going to say, I want a drawing file, or I want a template file, or both. And, we're going to go into our current project, and we're going to go into our templates folder. And where did we start that with? We started that one with the design one. And now a stare and compare is going to go on, and you have no control over what it's staring at. It's simply evaluating, the code in the object model. Does it vary? And we have this vast, confusing collection of what it's going to do, right? Since we just want to go back there, we could say, oh, hammer it. And that's what this means, right? It's going to go and, find every single marker style that had to be added that we purged out, okay? Now, some of these are graded, right? Okay, and find all those. We didn't modify a style. I don't think I modified anything, so almost all of this is going to be added. Right, and we have different levels of detail. If you want to be sophisticated about here, uncheck everything, check everything that's going to be, that differs in any way, shape, or form. One's to be deleted. So if your friend Bob in the next cubicle had added his own styles into the project drawing, and you want to make sure that those all get pulled out, right? You can check the deleted ones. Some knowledge of the difference between what you're doing and where you're going is pretty much required here. Here's all the added ones. Well, I don't really want it. I want to add them all back. Yes, I do at this point. And ones that vary. Okay, they may vary by Bob tweaked one little teeny property in one little teeny thing about the profile view style here. Didn't tell anybody it worked, and maybe forgot to tell anybody, and you want to make sure that only those changes get made. Yeah, you can do that. Another really important box right down here is importing the settings. So that will change all my drawing settings back to wherever they were before. That will in fact overwrite my change that I made to surfaces to be standard instead of major contours. And this will hammer my entire drawing back to the current state. And it will grind away. And I want you to look at the command line. Notice that there are significant things buried away in the way that AutoCAD works, that the style hammer or an import tool cannot change. Things like AutoCAD style references, AutoCAD block references, right, cannot be changed by the style import tool, have to be changed in other ways, right? So we got, almost 1,700 styles, right? And 1,000 settings. So even a simple little Civil 3D template like Instant On Basic, right, carries a lot of baggage. And it didn't delete anything. Why? Because there were no conflicts that said, please get rid of these, Bob had touched these, because I'm not Bob. Okay, and so now we get back, all the styles we got, always good idea, save. A couple of words of warning as I wrap up here, right? There are a couple other nifty reference, right? Style tools in here from a surface, from a surface, right? Notice there are no style tools here, right? No way, which in this would be very useful to replace with, would be really handy here, right? But it's not there. So those are my little wish list items in terms of style import. You can employ style import to build up a template, opening unique things like we offer in Jump Kit with those profile views, and I want just those ones. So if I wanted, to do that and say, okay, where was that thing? Well, that was, up on my Jump Kit, and it was resources. It was complex resources. It was in styles. It was in complex, and I wanted some of those profile views, and we'll just pick, the clipped ones, right? And now I'll do a stare and compare, and I'll get a different result. Why I get a grading criteria set, right? There is no standard criteria set in my current drawing, right? I want to uncheck that one. All I'm really interested in my profile views. These will all be to be added. Oh, there are a couple that need to be updated. What little thing differed, right? Okay, between the Jump Kit version of this and the IOB version, there's an omit padding property, and if you know what that is, that's great. If you don't, well, something to go learn. We have those ones to be updated, and we have this giant list, right, of all these ones. So I can add to, supposedly this is a project drawing, but I could be adding these to a template and say, hey, please squirt all those in, or, only squirt the 3s and the ones that work importantly with 3, 7, 5. I don't need any of the 10s, right? Okay, so you can selectively pick out what you want to add into a template using this device. You do want to make sure you don't import the settings, right? And we could say, okay, it'll add some more. So now we have a sexy new template or drawing file that's got all the support for 30 scale because I thought through my problem and decided to import it. I do want to point out also, right? Okay, whoops, save. And I want to get to the help file real quickly. You should read the fine print. Okay, so import, no help, right? What do I have to do? F1. Okay. Okay. So read the fine print, right? What is imported, what is not imported, is very important. Okay. Okay, and this has gotten better since the product release in terms of the help file that's really up and online, right? So pay attention. These are the ones that do come across, ones that don't come across, right? Okay, and this one, if you employ expressions, is extremely important. So if it's a secondary reference, right, make sure that you manually bring in the expressions. Otherwise, you may have problems. Okay, so pay careful attention. Things like description key sets do not get imported. Point file formats. Some of these, well, I don't really care about those, but hey, drawing abbreviations are actually pretty important. If you've decided you wanted your template to employ different default abbreviations or different drawing object layers, these are really important ones, so they have to be done separately. Okay, so pay attention, read the fine print, right? Read it a couple of times, encourage you, and the help file goes through, how do you do all the stuff that we did today. If you can't remember and don't have a chance or don't want to, go back to cadpilot.com.